Thank you, and Marvin, as always, thank you for those songs. Actually, when I first moved to New York, my best friend that I met there was Jewish, and so I was invited to my first Yom Kippur dinner with the gefilte fish and the bitter herbs and all that stuff. And it's feels good to be here and to be reminded. And my good friend, who I spent so many of those Jewish holidays with, his father just passed a week or so ago at the ripe old age of 92, I think. So I just want to take a moment just to send love and energy and light to the family, and just I'm really feeling the blessings of that tradition. And we certainly saw it at the beginning with the dance, and we heard it there with the music, and it's the power of that energy. And with dance and music, it keys right in with my talk today, which is Dare to Dream, the Power of Imagination. And of course, imagination is one of the 12 powers that they talk about at Unity. And I would like to think of it as, or I feel that it is maybe the basis of all the other powers. That ability to visualize, to see things that aren't here yet, that connect us with spirit and with the invisible. We practiced it a little bit at the meditation that we did at the beginning of the service. And we use the power of imagination every day. And my question is, are we using it consciously or unconsciously? Are we focused on worries and the things that we don't want to happen? Or are we owning our power of imagination to really visualize the things we want? And what I want to encourage you to open to and recognize is that the power of imagination does not have to necessarily be that big, wonderful life purpose, that big thing that we want to imagine. It doesn't have to be the light bulb or a symphony or a great new art form. We can use the power of imagination to simply imagine what grace would be. I mean, that was part of our daily word today, grace. And it's a word, and we think we all know what it means, but what does it feel like to sit, think of grace, and imagine what that would feel like? The power of imagination tunes us into that feeling of grace. And when we feel it, suddenly just the power of imagination has become real, as expressed in a feeling. And I'm sure if they had electrodes on us and were measuring our pulse, people sitting, imagining grace would move into a more relaxed state. The brain would probably move into more of the alpha state. So that's the power of imagination. We use it for meditation. We use it in prayer. We use it in relationships to imagine what we want, or very often imagine that same thing happening again that we don't want. So I invite you this week as you move forward to really look at what you're imagining, where you're focusing your mind. Because the mind can't help but blossom into the imagination. Whatever's going on, we're adding our specific or individual creativity to it, our take. It's happening either subconsciously or unconsciously or consciously. So what I invite us to do this week is to be conscious of what we're focusing on, what we're imagining, where we're placing our energy. I had a client this week, and we were working with this anxiety that was coming up. And we began talking about some of her base imaginings of what she was projecting onto the world. And she said, well, I've been bored for a long time, and I'm wanting to get out. I feel like my life is boring, and I feel it's that way because I've allowed other people to really guide my life. I've turned things over consciously to my husband, my kids, other people, And so we explored a little bit why she had done that, and she said, I did it purposely because it felt safer than me making decisions and choices, because then if things didn't go right, I didn't have to blame myself. She could blame someone else. And that was big for me, because truthfully, I thought, wow, there's places in my life that I do that. I let somebody else make the decision, because if it's the wrong thing, well, not my fault. And so we began to look at the anxiety, and I said, well, what's that about? She said, well, I realized that I don't want to do that anymore. And that means stepping out on my own and making my own choices and decisions. And I said, okay, well, let's just be with the anxiety for a minute. What does that feel like? And she suddenly said, oh my God, I just felt this wave of fear. And I said, what was the fear about? She said, well, I just had this image, this imagination of me standing in front of a group of people and feeling so exposed and vulnerable. And I said, wonderful. I said, wonderful, because there's the power of imagination. When you tuned into that feeling center, what the energy was there, you got this image of standing in front of a group of people. And I said to her, because this is partly what we've been working on, that's what you've been wanting to do. You've been wanting to step into your own power and begin to share your knowledge and your gifts with other people. And suddenly your imagination, based on this feeling center, this energy center that moves us forward, saw you in front of that group of people. She said, yes, but Carsten, it's horrifying. I feel like I'm going to explode. I said, okay, we're using the imagination now. In your imagination, let yourself explode. What's left? And she went through this whole thing, said, oh, I got this and this and this. I said, good, feel it. It's just the imagination. You're okay. You're right here. So after it was finished, I said, what are you feeling? She said, oh my God, I feel so vulnerable. I said, are you still standing in front of those people? She said, yeah. And I said, what else do you feel? She said, I just feel present. I feel open. I feel them looking at me and accepting me. But it feels so simple. It doesn't feel like I'm anything special or anything big, so I don't understand why they're there, but they're there. And I said to her, I said, is this a place where you would be able to share your gifts and your, whatever it is you want to share, where you would feel comfortable sharing it? And she said, yes. So there's the power of imagination connected with that power center, the solar plexus. And this is how the unity principles work. This is how it works. God the good, omnipotent. There was this anxiety, which we've talked a lot about feelings the past few months, and how anxiety is also an anagram for any exit. You switch the words around. And that's generally what we do with anxiety. We try to avoid the feeling at all costs and try to figure out how to feel better. Here was an opportunity where she went into the anxiety, and it gave her a very clear picture of moving forward. It was able to allow her to clear out the blocks that were there and to really make way for the power of imagination to begin to work. And of course, what we all want to do is then go, well, what's my next step? And that was the wonderful thing about the daily word, grace. Grace for me is that trusting that we don't have to figure out what's next. We need to open to that unseen energy and trust that, the next step will come. And that step will lead us to the next step. Talking about boredom, how boring would life be if we knew everything that was going to happen? If it was all laid out for us. We get frustrated, well, I don't know what's next, and I'm worried because I don't know what the future is. Well, if we did know the future, yeah, we get very bored. So that's part of the excitement. And it is part of the paradigm or the process that for me is proof that there is a divine energy. Because all of us are basically moving forward, not knowing what's next. But this world manages to move forward really quite wonderfully. We have a tendency to focus on all those things that aren't right. But in the big picture, most things happen pretty well. Most people are getting on with their lives, moving forward. There's a lot of creativity and productivity, and this amazing world with all these different people and ideas is moving in basic harmony. And once again, what do we focus on? Do we focus on the negative and what's not right? Or do we use that power of imagination to focus on what's already right? And then ask that very important question, how can it get any better than this? How can it get any better than this? We talked about that a number of months ago. So, I want to talk about the journey home today as well. Because there's a paradox here in this physical life that we're living, which is we all want to feel safe. We all kind of want to find that place of home. So many stories about home. And yet, going home always involves a journey. Even with our family of origin. So many of us come and say, well, I felt like I wasn't really understood there, or there was a certain part of me that wasn't accepted. A lot of our journey as we become adults is trying to make sense of what happened to us in that place. And it's to try to find that place of peace and understanding and comfort. We went there at the beginning with our guided meditation of really visualizing that kingdom of heaven and what it would feel like. So there's a part of us that wants to find that place where we can sit and relax and be calm. And yet there's also a part of us that wants and needs the journey, that needs to be moving somewhere, that needs to be going somewhere. And so it brings me again to the Lord's Prayer. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done. There's action within that. But the kingdom, I think of that as the kingdom of heaven within. That's home. That's that place where we fit in, we're accepted, we're seen, we're validated, we feel that there's nothing left to do, we can just be. And that's kind of our job or our goal or what motivates us through this life. We want to find a partner where we feel comfortable, we can be ourselves and open up and explore who we are. We want to find a job that allows us to express our talents and feel comfortable and at home. So, thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. That is the power of imagination. So what I'm inviting people to do is to look at life as a place of home and comfort and security, that place of grace, but also as a journey where we use the imagination, we listen to that inner guidance, our feelings and our imagination to move us to always, hopefully, a greater experience of home, of connection, of self-expression, of satisfaction. Imagination is the ability, so here we go right to the Unity's teachings. Imagination, one of the 12 powers, the ability to image, picture, conceptualize, envision, dream. So we're talking about daydreams. We've talked a lot about evening dreams as well, and I do that work as well. But daydreaming is a powerful practice. It's not one that's always honored. When you're in school and suddenly you're not focusing on the math problem and you're out the window somewhere else, the teacher says, stop daydreaming. Focus on this. This is what's important. What I invite you to open to is the important power of daydreaming. It's one of the 12 powers, the power of imagination. Take some time this week to just take a walk or close your eyes or just put your mouse down and turn off or turn away from your computer and just take a moment just to stop thinking and let that childlike imagination begin to blossom. See where it takes you. There are some that say the imagination is our doorway into our angels, our guides, those muses that are all around. Certainly the great creative minds of the past talked about they don't understand how it works, but they need to tune in to that muse. That muse is a female goddess or a female energy that downloads the information. I invite you this week to spend some time calling in your muse. It can be something as simple as suddenly you had an image of just arranging flowers. You know, I'm going to go pick some flowers and arrange them. Or you suddenly think, ooh, I'd like to make some special brownies with just made-up ingredients. can be that simple, but you're exercising a very powerful part of you. The disciple Bartholomew is the disciple that's connected with the 12 powers. Those of us who study the 12 powers know that each of the 12 powers connect with one of the 12 disciples. He represents positive thoughts held in mind. Very simple. That's imagination, just holding a positive thought in mind, the thought of something positive. As we share grace, what a positive thought. What if this week you decided that when I'm feeling anxious or something's going on, somebody pushes my buttons, that I'm just going to take a moment to hold the thought of grace in my mind and imagine what that feels like. Imagine that person who's irritating me surrounded in a bubble of grace. What would that look like? You know, maybe it would look like a beautiful pink-colored Easter egg, and in your mind you can imagine what that would look like. Probably more productive than sitting there and imagining all the things you'd like to say to them, and if I had the nerve, I'd tell them this, or... So, the corresponding color is light blue, and the location is between the eyes. So here we learn, in unity, connects with my yoga teachings, that it's synonymous with the 6th chakra and the 3rd eye, which color is indigo, very close to blue. How much of the time do we spend up here with the ego mind looking at what's wrong and going through all the stories of how we're going to try to fix what's going on out there? Instead of imagining something different, if we don't like it, use the power of imagination to imagine what would we like, and what would, the way we tell if we're on the right track is what gives us a good feeling, what takes us out of that anxiety of the discomfort and moves us to that place, that feels good. That good feeling that allows us to take a deep breath, that's that creative energy moving through us. That's us really projecting that energy into the future, planting those seeds of faith, of trust, of grace. The affirmation is, I envision good unfolding in every area of my life. Wow. And how do we make affirmations work in unity? It's not just saying the words, but it's feeling the energy behind it. And how do we feel the energy behind an affirmation like, I envision good unfolding in every area of my life? We envision what that good would look like. It's not just an idea, it's what we went through at the beginning. Imagine what that Garden of Eden would feel like. Imagining in our job if there's something going wrong that we don't like. What would the ideal job be? What would it feel like for me to wake up tomorrow morning and go to a job that enlivens me? And it may not even be that you change your job, you change your attitude and notice how that changes. It may also be that you change your job. You may envision what that job would feel like, and the vision may lead you to an action. Maybe just to open up the paper or go on Craigslist. Dog grooming, that sounds like fun to me. Is there anything out there? You don't know, maybe just the envisioning process will open your heart and your energy and your awareness so suddenly an opportunity will show up. How many have had that happen in the past? Visualize something. I think all of us at one time or another have the experience of imagining something, feeling an energy around it, and then suddenly it happens and we go, wow, that's magic. Truth is, it's not magic, it's universal law. It's how it works. To maximize the power of imagination, connect to the heart, sacral, solar plexus. Feel it. The throat chakra, the power center, speak it. The root and base chakra, taking action. So here's a little tool as I tuned into this and did a little bit of reading and then tuned into my own imagination that I came to. So really to maximize the power of imagination, we imagine what's it going to look like, what's it going to feel like. Then we connect it with the heart, sacral, and solar plexus, these body parts of us where we feel things. We allow ourselves to feel it, allow it to be an experience in the body. Then we connect it to the throat, which is the power center in the 12 powers, and we speak it. We do the affirmation. I see the perfect job coming where I'm able to express all my talents and gifts and be paid well for it after we've imagined it. So we speak it out, and we say it as many times as we need to out loud until we feel it vibrating through us. And then we connect it to the base or root chakra, which is our physical body, by taking an action towards that. It can be a simple action, as simple as getting up and going, yeah! Right? Or it can be opening up your paper and looking if there's an opportunity available for us. But simple steps, but how powerfully we can see that it gets all of us involved. Mind, emotions, body, and spirit. This is quoting Winifred Hausman in an article that she wrote which says, "See it right." In unity there is a saying, to set it right, to see it right. So what they're talking about is, you want to set things right, you see it right first in your imagination. This is a clue to the proper use of our God-given faculty of imagination. In order to change conditions in our mind, body, and affairs, we must first transform the pictures we are holding in mind. If we don't like the conditions we are attracting, we can change them by building new images with the eye of the mind, our faculty of imagination. So let's imagine that eye of the mind right here is that blue or indigo colored ball, our third eye. And just imagine that it is a powerful projector, projecting our thoughts, feelings, and visions, connecting with all these amazing synapses, all this electromagnetic activity that goes on in the mind. We're sending energy like radio waves out all around us, attracting either what we want or what we don't want based on what we focus on. So be aware this week when you find yourself worrying, find yourself projecting on negative things. Don't beat yourself up, because we can have a tendency to do that. Oh my God, I'm so bad, I'm thinking those negative things. Look at the feeling that's underneath the negative things you're projecting, and be willing to just be with the feeling without the story. That, I guarantee, will allow you to untangle whatever the subconscious beliefs are that are focused on the negativity, because there's stuff going on. And so much of my spiritual journey, and I imagine yours, and I know from sharing with you, many of you, your journey is this. It's about understanding ourselves, recognizing, being aware, conscious of what's going on up here, in here, in here, in here. And so by giving yourself the time, rather than just jumping away, oh no, a negative thought, I have to run away from it. We do that in some of the spiritual work. Instead of stopping and looking, not calling it negative for a moment. Right? That's the unity principle. And that's so powerful to me. If I'm trying to run from something or saying this is negative and bad, if I haven't stopped to look at it, then I'm not owning that unity principle. Everything is good. One power, one presence. And I have found that those things that push my button that I immediately call, oh my God, why is this happening? It's got energy. I encourage you to follow the energy. If there's a strong charge, there's something there to look at. There's a gift. There's something to unwrap. Take the time to unwrap it. Imagination makes its home in the body at a point between the eyes where we might think of its function as that of a third eye. One that enables us to see beyond what we normally take in through the two physical eyes. As we seek to develop our power of imagination for God purposes, we concentrate our attention at this point between the eyes and encourage the awakening of our power to picture God ideas. So it can be as simple as, I'm going to let myself imagine what a God idea might be. I'm going to imagine that this third eye is a powerful projector, more powerful than any worry or doubt. So there we're using the imagination to expand simply a concept, to expand the idea of who we are. So that can be the first and maybe most powerful way to use the imagination. Imagine yourself as a more spiritual being. Imagine yourself as more connected to God than you thought you were. What would that feel like? I'm going to imagine myself as the Christ. Isn't that what we're doing here at Unity? Isn't that where Myrtle and Charles took us? I want to go right to Christ's teaching and see if I can manifest in my life what he was able to do in his life. So to imagine yourself as the Christ, how would I act today if I knew I was the Christ? I had that God energy within me. Of course, that's what we talk about in Unity, but we can imagine what if it was absolutely true. And through the act of imagination, we can begin to make it our truth. Baby steps, right? Baby steps. I want to take you through a nice meditation here. But other thing I want to share, which came up, was very powerful connection to art and the real creative process. Pentimento. Does anyone know what that word means? It's an artistic term for people who do visual arts, and it's the idea when the great masters, or maybe not even a master, maybe just a beginner, starts a painting and then decides they don't like the way it's going, so they paint over a certain area. And they talk about how it's the energy that's underneath what they painted over, which sometimes can be seen through a little bit, the images or certain shades of the color that was underneath. And sometimes it can't be, but what the art historians talk about is that the energy of whatever is underneath there is still there. And so what it made me think about is how our lives are basically always being repainted. We start this, that kind of works, then we say, oh no, that didn't work, and we decide to do something else, and we paint something else over here, then that relationship didn't work out, and we say thank you very much, or sometimes we say, in the divorce court, but one way or another, we move someplace else. But that energy is still underneath, there's still something there. And in the art world, that is considered magical. It's wonderful to change the mind and decide to do something else, but still having the resonance of that energy that was going somewhere else. There's a concept that's called alternate realities or parallel realities that they say in a certain sense, and I think that quantum physics is now beginning to agree with this, that whenever we want to make a decision, we decide to go one way, there's a part of us, depending on how much energy was around that other decision, there may be a big part of us that took that other route, that is moving off in a separate reality and is living that reality. So in a sense, we've got all these different parts of us that are splitting off in us every new decision we make. Even, well, I want to turn right here, but there's traffic, so I'm going to go straight here instead. There's part of you that turned right. And that part is continuing on. So in a sense, that's the pentimento. It's all these other energies that are present and moving within us. And that's part of the creative process. We go up in the minds and think, well, that would be nice if I did that. Oh, but I can't do that. I'm going to let it go. Trusting that there's an energy. There's a movement that's there that you can draw on. We've heard stories about people who wanted to study something when they were younger or play a certain sport when they weren't able to. They were stifled, and then they come to it later in life and finally have a real innate talent for it. They may be tuning into that part of themselves that was going in that direction. So that's a good reason, perhaps, if there's something that you've always wanted to do and you've never done and you're telling yourself it's too late, give it a try. Even if you're just dabbling, it's just fun. Give it a try. See how it feels. See what it brings up in you. The power meditation exercise on imagination. So let's do this because it's what came up last night and I thought it would be wonderful to do. It's right from one of the Unity websites. So, with the center of our attention at the crown of your, with the center of your attention at the crown of your head, affirm, the Christ of God is quickening in me. So just repeat that. The Christ of God is quickening in me. Breathe that in. Now moving to the forehead, acknowledge that you are aware or conscious of this spiritual awakening. And affirm, I am aware that the Christ of God is quickening in me. I am aware that the Christ of God is quickening in me. We start by saying we know it's happening, and now we bring it to that space of awareness. Now to the solar plexus region, the emotional center. Feel the emotion of gratitude in response to this Christ quickening. And affirm, I am grateful that the Christ of God is quickening in me. So just breathe that in with a sense of gratitude, feeling the crown, that you know it's happening, the third eye where you're actually aware that it's happening, and now feel the gratitude. And it's whatever that Christ awareness is in you. Move your center of attention to the middle of your head, the pineal gland, the physical center for faith, represented by Peter. I am developing mountain-moving faith in God. So imagine that there's an energy that you just awakened through your intent, and you are growing mountain-moving faith there in your pineal gland, very center of your brain. Then move to the small of your back, the physical center of strength represented by Andrew, and affirm, my faith in God makes me strong and of good courage. And that lower back area connects with the base of root chakra, your physical grounding into the body and the earth. So feel that sense of strength is connected to gravity, that magnetic energy that holds you here. My faith in God makes me strong and of good courage. Then to the wisdom area at the solar plexus represented by James, and affirm, I am guided by wisdom and good judgment into right action. I am guided by wisdom and good judgment into right action. Now to the center of love, an area behind the heart represented by the beloved disciple John, and affirm, I am filled and thrilled with the magnetic forces of love. The power center is next, the throat or base of the tongue, represented by the disciple Philip. Affirm, I am power. And let's say that out loud since it's our throat center. I am power. Again. I am power. Again, softly. I am power. And now repeat it silently. Now to Bartholomew, who represents imagination, with your center of attention behind the eyes, affirm, Christ in me quickens my faculty of imagination. I see clearly and correctly. Concluding your meditation by repeating the prayer for protection, or a new version of the prayer for protection, which I'm going to teach you right now, by repeating as you feel yourself bathed in light, I am light. I am love. I am power. I am presence. I am. So as you breathe into that power of imagination, we're going to add that final chemical, which is belief. Belief in yourself, with the small self, that's the ego personality, which we want to divorce ourselves from, but it's part of us, and belief in the capital S self, which is the Christ energy, which is the truth of who and what each of us are. And with that, that's our cue for Morgan to play our first video, which is about belief. This is Lena Horne, where after many, many years, she's finally getting some of the honors that she deserves. This is her special Tony Award for her one-woman show on Broadway, so we're going to hear the end of her speech, and then the song that she sang, which really brought her back into the attention of the public.
I can tell you that sometimes you have to wait 50 years. Sometimes it comes in a year. But whenever it comes, I'm just so happy that I'm getting all these flowers before I lose my teeth. But I think my song will probably say it better. If you believe within your heart, you know that no one can change the path that you must go. Believe you feel and know you're right, because the time will come around when you'll say it's yours. Believe that you can go home. Believe you can go nowhere. Lick your heels 3 times. If you believe, well then you'll be there. That's why I want you to believe in yourself. Right from the start, you gotta believe in your magic right there in your heart. You have to believe all these things, not because I told you. You have to believe in yourself. Believe in yourself.
So to come back to, and that's from The Wiz, if people don't know that song, which is based on The Wizard of Oz, which is a classic story about coming home and ultimately finding that home is within us. So it comes back to what I was talking about at the beginning about we want to be home and it's a journey. And so what if this life that we're moving through is our home? Each and every part of it is about finding and expanding to that place and trusting the self, believing yourself. And so I think we'll just move to our final video, which is the next song that came after this, which is Diana Ross now coming to that understanding that home is in the heart. So, that world full of love inside our hearts, like yours, like mine, like home, we're all on the same journey. We're all moving to the same place, whether in the body or out. And so I invite you this week, when in doubt, say, I'm home. Take a deep breath. Feel the grace. And remember the power of imagination.